guys, I'm Swati. I'm a dog mom and your host for today. Welcome to the Good Breed podcast by Zigly. Today we're going to be discussing nutrition and pets. And we have Dr. Nikhil with us and he's going to be answering all our questions. Hi Dr. Nikhil, how are you?
I'm good, Swati. How are you?
Welcome back to our podcast. Today we have a lot of questions again for you. And today we're going to be talking about nutrition and pets.
Perfect.
So nutrition is something that is a very essential part of pet parenting, and it is something that a lot of pet parents are not very well informed about. Like humans, pets also need a very balanced diet. So as far as humans are concerned, we go to our dietitian and we get our balanced, nutritious diet from them. For pets, what is an ideal balanced diet?
Okay. So to approach this question, there are like 2-3 ways we can proceed. But the most important thing about getting to know what is the perfect meal or how much kilocalories your dog requires in a day, it largely depends upon his BCS. BCS stands for body condition and scoring. So how we measure body condition and scoring is we check how much weight or mass the dog basically has around his ribs, over his vertebrae, and how can we feel his vertebrae and ribs or not. So if I just give a little pressure and I can feel his ribs, that means he has an ideal body condition. An ideal body condition score in dogs is 3/5, and that is very good, that he has an ideal weight for his length, breed and everything. He has the other thing we do is we check how much muscles are there along his vertebrae. So that is the least exercised part of the body. So if that part also has a bit of a muscle on it, that means that the muscle division throughout the body will also be good. So those two things basically tells us what body condition score he has. We estimate that a dog with 1/5 body condition score will require a very different kind of kilocalories per day as compared to someone who is 5/5. So upon taking that into account, that is where your nutritionist then takes things forward, like how active your dog is he neutered or not. So those kind of things then also come into play. Once that has been decided, the interplay of carbohydrates, proteins, fibers and fats come into account. Largely, as they naturally have grown up, the cats largely require or prefer things which are high in protein and have lots of fat content in it as compared to carbs. Dogs can do well with carbs, but that is something that I would like to leave you with, because making assessment upon proteins, carbs, fats and what kind of fibers are also going to be added largely depends upon the body condition scoring, as we talked about, and how active or inactive your dog is.
Perfect. So another question that I have for you is that a lot of people, because they treat their pets as their own babies and उनको ऐसा लगता है कि घर पे जो खाना हम खा रहे हैं हम वही खाना उनको भी दे सकते हैं. हाँ, so मतलब अगर हम आलू के पराठे खा रहे हैं तो हमारा डॉग क्यों नहीं खा सकता. और बहुत लोगों की आदत होती है कि प्लेट, हाँ, जब वो खाना खा रहे होते हैं और उनका डॉग उनको देख रहा होता है तो वो उनको और बना के खिला देते हैं.
They look at puppy eyes. You just
हाँ, because the pets are also conditioned like that they know that if they're going to make the puppy eyes, they want to get the food. But coming to my question, that a lot of pet parents want to give their pets home food. So what I want to understand in terms of nutrition is that, is home food sufficient or is it balanced enough for a pet?
Okay, so I remember we were also discussing this when you were talking about your pet before that. So that is when everything also comes, like we are too protected that घर का खाना भी तो अच्छा है, like घर का खाना wins over these packed foods like and everything.
Yes.
But yes, you are right. As long as the food is balanced and it is prepared by nutritionists, it is good. You can prepare things at home if you read articles and you have been following a lot of books and you take into account the Indian climate and how much your dog is also working or is not working at all. So if you keep those things into mind and then you make well balanced diet, things can happen. But as we were discussing about veg food and non-veg food, like what to feed the dog and what not to feed the dog, as long as the vegetarian food is supplemented by those proteins which are excluded or exclusively available in non-veg protein, the veg food is good enough. So, but
So
there
yeah,
is
coming
need for
coming to
supplements.
that question, and that is a question I wanted to ask you, is that a lot of Indians,
Yes.
a lot of Indian families are full veg families.
Exactly.
बहुत सारे लोगों के घर में अंडा भी नहीं बनता है.
Exactly.
And then they get these dogs, who are like large breed dogs who require a lot of protein.
Yes.
And though they are feeding them home food, so mostly whenever I talk to pet parents,
Mhm.
I'm like, what is your dog eating? And they're like, वो तो आलू, उसको आलू बहुत पसंद है और चावल बहुत पसंद है और रोटी खा लेता है और दूध पी लेता है. And my concern in such situations is that a dog that requires so much protein, is a veg diet good enough, and will that not end up being a health issue later on in dogs?
Yes. So as I already mentioned, any diet which is well balanced and has been prepared by an expert nutritionist, dog, vegan or veg in formulation, it is usually supplemented, especially vegans or veg diet. They are largely supplemented by some nutrition or extra, what you can call it, capsules or tablets. So it kind of becomes equivalent to a non-veg diet. If that happens, only then veg and vegan diet is as comparable to a non-veg diet.
Okay, coming to supplements, okay, and supplements का concept अभी बहुत ज़्यादा new है pet parents के लिए. हम as humans ही अभी
Yes.
supplements नहीं खाते हैं.
True.
A lot of people are like, क्यों दवाइयाँ खानी है ज़बरदस्ती, and and then giving it to your dog, because giving medicine, is a very difficult thing if you haven't desensitize the dog right from the starting.
True.
Or the cat right from the
True.
starting. So either you mix the supplement in their food,
Yeah.
or the dog is comfortable enough that you put the capsule in the mouth, and then supplements have to be given very regularly.
Yes.
Do pets require supplement cycles? And how important are these supplement cycles for pets? Because one thing that I have noticed is कि जब लोग pets लेके आते हैं, and when they're puppies or they're kittens, तो जब starting में वो डॉक्टर के पास जाते हैं तो डॉक्टर्स उनको सप्लीमेंट्स देते हैं, और वो स्टार्टिंग के 2-3 महीने तो सप्लीमेंट्स देते हैं, और उसके बाद आई थिंक most pet parents don't even pay attention to supplements. So how important is a supplement cycle for pets?
So basically, if you see the kind of supplements a doctor prescribes to a puppy, it is basically something that is deficient in his diet, which we try giving it. So it's basically to compensate for all those dietary inadequacies that the doctor prescribes it to your dog. But there are few times that when giving over calciums or supplements can cause problems. Like in recent studies, we have found out that if you give a lot of calcium to giant breeds or large breeds, so their tendency of developing hyperdystrophics, bone diseases are more as compared to those on a slow growth diet. So yes, there are few things that can happen wrong if you are giving a lot of calcium or a lot of minerals in one sense. And other than that, sometimes even giving a lot of vitamins also can cause or adversely affect your pet's health. So supplements are good, but that is if given in moderation and in required amount.
So you're saying that supplements should only and only be given under a doctor's prescription.
Yes.
It is required, but it is supposed to be given in a certain way,
Yes.
and that has to be supervised by a doctor.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, coming to researchers, we as Indians, we have this habit that, even if I fall ill or I have some,
Yes.
little symptoms, the first thing I do is I Google
Dr.
it.
Google.
So Dr. Google comes in and everything we want to Google, like, acha cold ho gaya, acha ye symptoms
Yes.
hai, maybe I have this disease.
True.
So this is, I think, the first instinct these days people have, and the same instinct people have about checking on what food should be given. So for example, if there's somebody who gets a Saint Bernard, for example, the first thing that a pet parent does is Google, what should we feed a Saint Bernard, and and read online, and then there are these diet charts that are there, and all kind of information is available on the net. How trustworthy is that information, and is it advisable to go by that kind of information?
Yes. So again, first, that when you see your pet, there's always a bias anyone comes on the table with. In order to break that bias, it's very necessary to have a third person with some objectivity come into the scenario, and that's where your doctor comes in.
Yeah.
That is why Dr. Google can tell you a lot. He cannot objectively tell you, okay, this is something that is happening due to already existing condition or not. You may take it as a completely different symptom or symptom of the same disease. So that is where the doctor comes in and starts giving objectivity into this framework. And second, as you were talking about the Saint Bernard, so yes, that is required, but then I'll refer you again to the same question we did earlier. Like any dog or any breed of dog always requires to get his body condition score checked and activities measured, and only according to that the doctor and you should also think of getting anything prepared or getting a meal chart prepared.
So basically what you're saying is that
variation can exist.
variation will come in depending on the individual.
Yes.
Maybe there is a certain balance chart or a basic protocol in place.
Yes, but that's basically a guideline.
But that's a basic guideline.
Yes.
What has to be fed to your dog, how much it has to be fed,
Yes.
how many times, and what supplements have to be given is very individual
True.
specific.
True.
So your pet has to see a doctor or a nutritionist to get the right information and
Yes.
the right chart.
Yes.
Okay. Now there is another very common behavior in pet parents that I have seen is the concept of treats.
Yes.
Okay. So treats generally, the utility of treats was to help pet parenting in terms of training,
associate with
yes,
things.
and training. But it has become
Norm.
It has become a sort of a snack
Exactly.
now. And a lot of pet parents feed their pets 2-3 times a day and then give them treats 2-3 times a day. How healthy is that, A? And is it advisable, B? Is what I want to ask you.
Okay, so few treats such as chew sticks for gums. So those are something that you can readily give, but those also have a lot of carbohydrates inside. In general, a lot of treats have high amount of saturated fatty acids and carbs in them. Dogs usually, or cats in general, do not do well with carbohydrates. They do very well with high fat diet, high protein diet, they can still tolerate, but very high carb diet, they do not usually get along good with. So as a general rule of thumb, what is said that 10% of entire kilocalorie can come from food. 10% is very, very less. But as you see in some homes, all they are getting is snacks, treats. So 100% of their meal is coming
carbs
from snacks. So
Yes.
that is very, very unhealthy. But there are good treats which you can like switch them on to snacks like cucumbers, like fruits which are very helpful. Like those are the things that you can turn them into. Like they are also very flavory in taste, which dogs and cats really.
Another issue that I've seen with pet parenting is that once you start giving treats to your dogs, because treats are very tasty,
Yes.
right? The dogs stop eating their normal food,
Regularly.
and the pet parents are like, ये तो यही खाता है, तो हम फिर इसको यही खिलाते हैं, and they replace the meal with treats. I know of a pet parent who was just giving treats as one meal to the pet. How dangerous is that?
It is very, very dangerous because it kind of is somewhere where your love is overshadowing a pet's health, and pet's primary source of any nutrition is you. It's not anything else, but it's you. So you are basically responsible for his health. So it's very daunting to grasp that if your dog is fat or he is thin, it's upon you that you're not taking care of. But that is actually the reality.
This is something that we've spoken about on Pets Familiar and Zigly multiple times, and I have, I've really pressed on this point a lot, that as pet parents, what we do is that every single time we want to show love to our pet,
Yes, you give treat.
We start feeding our dog.
Yes.
And
I tell you, there's also something wrong with Indian mentality also. Like when we go out, we think of food. क्या खाया?
क्या खाया? So it's a very mummy sort of reaction कि मेरा बच्चा है तो मैं खिला देती हूँ उसको, मैं खिला देती हूँ, मैं सब खिला देती हूँ उसको. So what happens in that is that what we don't realize is that there is a problem of obese dogs.
Exactly.
And I have seen this with multiple pet parents, that and especially with breeds like say a lab or a golden retriever, who do not have control themselves. आप लैब को जितना मर्जी खिलाते रहो, वो खाता रहेगा, and he will keep asking for food. As pet parents, you have to draw that line that this is the amount that he has to eat, and here is where you stop. But as pet parents, because we feel, हाय मेरा बच्चा मेरी तरफ ऐसे देख रहा है, and what do I do, and I have to give him food, so we keep feeding them, and because of which they become obese. And there is also this concept of believing that fat dogs are cute. कि वो कितना मोटू डॉग है, कितना क्यूट डॉग है, but they are really, really unhealthy.
Exactly.
So what is your advice to parents like that?
So one thing that we already told you about, that this is not healthy for the dogs. They develop a lot of bone related issues, muscles, as well as cardiac issues. They develop something that people always forget, that skin is also one of the organs of the dog. When they are obese, they develop all these folds, and there are a lot of fungus and bacterial diseases which develop there. And further, if a lot of fat develops under the skin, it becomes, the immunity of the skin also kind of starts waning off.
Yeah.
And then you start seeing all these skin issues start developing. So if your dog is not healthy, in general, is anywhere obese, or in general is unhealthy, he is going to develop such kind of conditions a lot. And that is pressing because we do not get to spend a lot of time with our pets.
Yeah.
As you know, their age is not as much as ours.
Yeah.
So if they have this condition, it's going to take away a few years already from them.
Yeah.
So if you want to have them for a longer period of time, if you want to do everything in your power to make sure, then that is something that they really need to start making sure that it's done.
Another question that I have, and this has been debated about multiple times, I've seen it on multiple forums, is animals being given food, should animals be given raw food versus cooked food? So what is your opinion on this? Because a lot of experts feel that canines are, by their DNA, they should be given raw food. And a lot of experts believe that the kind of raw food that is coming in at the moment and the kind of breeds that we have at the moment, raw food is not apt for them.
Yes.
So, what is your opinion on this?
So largely, what my apprehension about raw food remains is something to do with public health, or where your meat is sourced from. Like, is it cooked? Were there microorganisms or not? So that kind of checks, unfortunately, are still nowhere in India. You see these lapses keep on happening, even though they take it's
So
a
quality
good,
is your concern.
So even though raw food would be good, I'm sure it would be good, but there are chances that there might be salmonella or other kind of things that are still present there, and which can make the dog very, very sick. So I would rather have him eat a bit of already digested protein rather than something that is raw and has some kind of organisms which can be dangerous to him lying there. So it's largely a quality related issue.
So I'm going to end this with a very, very basic question. And these are questions that come to us all the time, about basic food items that are bad for dogs or bad for cats. So people ask us, can we give them milk? Can we give them grapes? Can we give them kiwi?
Chocolate is something you completely avoid for dogs. Sometimes you'll also avoid raisins and grapes.
Grapes.
Onions should be avoided
garlic.
as well. Garlic. So those are the few things. A very weird thing happens that few people give garlic to their dogs, like as a normal carbonative or some kind of thing. I was very shocked. Okay, that.
But garlic is actually very, very dangerous.
to dogs.
So basically, any sort of caffeine is bad. Any kind of sugar is bad. Chocolate is toxic for dogs. Ice creams are not supposed to be given.
Yes. But if you're giving this once in a while, like once in a blue moon, and that too vanilla in flavor, very less in quantity, just to make them have a taste of it, but very less. If you can avoid it, try avoid it.
So no cakes, no candies, grapes is bad, mushrooms is bad, I think.
Yes, mushrooms.
So raisins, dry fruits are...
Few of them, not all.
Anything else? Milk is a major discussion when it comes to, because a lot of pet parents feel कि dogs तो दूध रोटी खाते हैं, cats तो दूध पीती हैं, and we have multiple researchers that say that cats and dogs are lactose intolerant and milk should not be given. So what are your thoughts on milk?
So that's why I try to avoid milk directly. I try to skirt around the issues because there are multiple belief systems regarding to milk. So try avoid giving milk. In general, also what people have found out that milk of one species when given to another species can cause a kind of a problem in the species which is.
And it's difficult to digest.
It's difficult.
So basically, if you're taking cow milk or buffalo milk, so it is actually meant for the calf.
Yes.
It is not meant for a dog or a cat.
Yes.
And that's why it's going to be difficult to digest.
Exactly.
Right.
The proteins don't kind of digest well.
Yeah.
Like there is A1, A2 protein in every discussion going on, like what is healthy, what is not. So, but in the end, try avoid giving milk. But if you're still hell-bent on giving milk, what you can do is you give only 1/3 of the milk, and the 2/3 needs to come from water.
So really diluted milk. There's a lot of discussion around probiotics. So there's a lot of discussion about yogurt and dahi and buttermilk, and a lot of experts say that is very good and it's very, very good in summers. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yes, it can be given. Largely microbes digest all these proteins which are in milk, and that is why it makes it healthy. Though people say, like you are saying, that milk should not be given but curd is okay. Like how does that happen? So basically microorganisms digest these proteins, and then it becomes easier to digest. As we were also discussing, our problem was with the ease of digestibility of the milk and nothing else. So once it's digested by microorganism, it becomes in a kind of format which is easier for anyone to have it. Say animals, even humans. So
Yeah. So a lot of humans who have lactose intolerance, they also can have curd, but they can't have milk. So it's the same concept.
exactly.
Okay. So thank you so much, Dr. Nikhil. This was a very, very informative session, and I hope the listeners are enjoying this and this is helpful for them. So summing up this entire session for you guys, I will tell you that the food that humans eat might or might not be very correct for your pet. So to get the right diet for your pet, our suggestion is that you take your pet to a vet,
Or you can call the vet.
or you can call the vet to your pet
Yes.
and get the right balanced diet for your pet. Till then, you can keep sending us questions, and we will be back with another episode of The Good Breed by Zigly. This is Swati, a dog mom, and your host for today, signing off.